Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of the South Fork. Whoever you are, whomever you love, however you vote, wherever you are on your life's journey, whatever your name for the sacred, you are very welcome here. I'm the Reverend Kimberly Quinn Johnson. Our musician this morning is Steven Skolberg, and our tech assistant this morning is Tracy Robinson. As we get started, I just want to remind you of a few things about how we're using Zoom. You can find controls if you're on a computer for muting yourself or your video or for chat along the bottom of your screen. If you're on a tablet, those may be at the top right of your screen. If you are on a smartphone, you may want to swipe left or right to get to some of those. We're asking that for most of the service, if you're not speaking, to mute yourself so that we can focus on our speaker. And we do encourage you to use the chat in the same way that you would use your voice or your hands or your body in person to participate and make worship a really embodied experience. Some of us may feel uncomfortable with a raised hand and an amen in person. This is your opportunity in the chat to practice a raised hand and an amen, or maybe a hallelujah somewhere along the line. I don't know if I have anything hallelujah worthy today, but we'll try. And for the first time since doing our worship on Zoom, we are again live streaming on Facebook. So welcome if you are joining us on Facebook. There is a little lag, a delay. We'll see how this goes. I have a couple of announcements for you this morning. It is not too late to register for General Assembly. General Assembly this week is Wednesday through Sunday. It is a collection of worship and workshops and statements on social witness, like our 2015 Action of Immediate Witness, recognizing support for Black Lives Matter. This year, there is a business proposal to propose that we engage in socially responsible investing. It will be on Zoom, so we aren't traveling to Providence. I know Zoom can be a lot, but it also means that you can really pace yourself. And we do have stipends to offset the cost if that's something that you need. I also want to let you know about our summer movie and discussion series that begins next week. It's once monthly, the end of the month. Next week, we are watching Conscious Point, which is about the fight to protect sacred lands of Indigenous people. And it will be followed by a panel with members of the Shinnecock Nation. You can find more about how to connect to these events and also what else is happening in the congregation in your e-bulletin every Thursday. Do we have any visitors who would like to introduce yourself this morning? You can unmute yourself or you can introduce yourself in the chat. If you are a visitor, please put your name in the chat so that one of our greeters or someone from our connection team. Oh, there we go, somebody. Hello.
Hello. I'm Helen Burgess's husband. I'm setting up her, what are you going to call it, a broadcast studio? Hi, dear. You know, I heard you say something about the Shinnecock. Incidentally, I did a master's degree in social work, and I worked on the Puspatuck Indian Reservation for 2 years. My field placement was on the Puspatuck with Harry Wallace, Chief Wallace, and that crew. And I put a computer lab in the community center, and I cleaned up some boats in the derelict boats in the marsh on Mr. Treadwell's property. But I've just come in from shopping, and I'm setting this up for Helen. She's your parishioner. I'm the husband.
Welcome, Helen Burgess' husband. We
I'm on the phone right now. I'm going to go get her and get her to sit here and chat with you folks.
Excellent. We hope you'll join us, and she will join us later for the video and discussion. Is there anybody else who wants to introduce yourself briefly? Well, welcome. We are glad you're here. We are glad you are watching us on Facebook, if that's happening. If you're visiting for the first time or for the 50th time, if you are in agreement with our values, with our mission and our principles, we do hope that you will find a home here. Again, your email in the chat means that someone from our welcome team will get back to you. This morning, as we continue our exploration of good and evil, we also remember Father's Day. And we remember all the ways that fathers show up in our lives and in our communities. We light our chalice with these words from Kirk Lodeman Copeland, a Father's Day prayer. Let us praise those fathers who have striven to balance the demands of work, marriage, and children with an honest awareness of both sacrifice and joy. Let us praise those fathers who, lacking a good model for a father, have worked to become a good father. Let us praise those fathers who, by their own account, were not always there for their children, but who continue to offer those children, now grown, their love and support. Let us praise those fathers who have been wounded by the neglect and hostility of their children. Let us praise those fathers who, despite divorce, have remained in their children's lives. Let us praise those fathers whose children are adopted and whose love and support has offered healing. Let us praise those fathers who, as stepfathers, freely chose the obligation of fatherhood and earned their stepchildren's love and respect. Let us praise those fathers who have lost a child to death and continue to hold the child in their heart. Let us praise those men who have no children, but cherish the next generation as if they were their own. Let us praise those men who have fathered us in their role as mentors and guides. Let us praise those men who are about to become fathers, who have just become grandfathers again. May they openly delight in their children and their grandchildren. And let us praise those fathers who have died, but live in our memory and whose love continues to nurture us. Let's join together in singing our first hymn. Stephen will play and sing, and the words are on your screen.
This is my song, O God of all the nations, a song of peace
first message this morning is a story. It's one that might be, probably is, familiar to you, but perhaps a little different than what you're used to. I'm going to pause there because for some reason our video is not playing, and I'm going to try this again, which means if you're watching on Facebook, it just gives you time to catch up. So let's try again. Let's see. Sorry, I'm really sorry. Sometimes when we are doing things live, they don't go exactly how we want them to go. And we try again.
Everybody knows the story of the three little pigs. Or at least they think they do. But I'll let you in on a little secret. Nobody knows the real story because nobody has ever heard my side of the story. I'm the wolf. Alexander T. Wolf. You can call me Al. I don't know how this whole big bad wolf thing got started, but it's all wrong. Maybe it's because of our diet. Hey, it's not my fault wolves eat cute little animals like bunnies and sheep and pigs. That's just the way we are. If cheeseburgers were cute, folks would probably think you were big and bad too. But like I was saying, the whole big bad wolf thing is all wrong. The real story is about a sneeze and a cup of sugar. This is the real story. Now, way back in Once Upon a Time, I was making a birthday cake for my dear old granny. I had a terrible sneezing cold. I ran out of sugar. So I walked down the street to ask my neighbor for a cup of sugar. Now, this neighbor was a pig, and he wasn't too bright either. He had built his whole house out of straw. Can you believe it? I mean, who in his right mind would build a house of straw? So, of course, the minute I knocked on the door, it fell right in. I didn't want to just walk into someone else's house, so I called, little pig, are you in?" No answer. I was just about to go home without the cup of sugar for my dear old granny's birthday cake. That's when my nose started to itch. I felt a sneeze coming on. Well, I huffed, and I snuffed, and I sneezed a great sneeze. And you know what? That whole darn straw house fell down. And right in the middle of the pile of straw was the first little pig, dead as a doornail. He had been home the whole time. It seemed like a shame to leave a perfectly good ham dinner lying there in the straw. So I ate it up. Think of it as a big cheeseburger just lying there. I was feeling a little better. But I still didn't have my cup of sugar. So I went to the next neighbor's house. This neighbor was the first little pig's brother. He was a little smarter, but not much. He had built his house of sticks. I rang the bell in the stick house. Nobody answered. I called, "Mr. Pig, Mr. Pig, are you in?" He yelled back, "Go away, Wolf. You can't come in. I'm shaving the hairs on my chinny chin chin." I had just grabbed the doorknob when I felt another sneeze coming on. I huffed and I snuffed. And I tried to cover my mouth, but I sneezed a great sneeze. And you're not going to believe it, but this guy's house fell down just like his brother's. When the dust cleared, there was the second little pig, dead as a doornail. Wolf's honor. Now, you know food will spoil if you just leave it out in the open, so I did the only thing there was to do. I had dinner again. Think of it as a second helping. I was getting awfully full, but my cold was feeling a little better, and I still didn't have that cup of sugar for my dear old Granny's birthday cake. So I went to the next house. This guy was the first and second little pig's brother. He must have been the brains of the family. He had built his house of bricks. I knocked on the brick house. No answer. I called, "Mr. Pig, Mr. Pig, are you in?" And do you know what that rude little porker answered? "Get out of here, Wolf. Don't bother me again." Talk about impolite. He probably had a whole sack full of sugar, and he wouldn't even give me one little cup for my dear sweet old Granny's birthday cake? What a pig. I was just about to go home and maybe make a nice birthday card instead of a cake when I felt my cold coming on. I huffed, and I snuffed, and I sneezed once again. Then the third little pig yelled, "And your old granny can sit on a pin." Now, I'm usually a pretty calm fellow, but when somebody talks about my granny like that, I go a little crazy. Cops drove up. Of course I was trying to break down this pig's door. And the whole time I was huffing, puffing, and sneezing, and making a real scene. The rest, as they say, is history. The news reporters found out about the two pigs I had for dinner. They figured a sick guy going to borrow a cup of sugar didn't sound very exciting, so they jazzed up the story with all that huff and puff and blow your house down. And they made me the big bad wolf. That's it. The real story. I was framed. But maybe you could loan me a cup of sugar.
You never know until you hear another person's side of the story. May your roots grow deep. May your branches spread far. May you find this world to be a wonderful place with a cup of sugar when you need it, and leave it better for those who follow. We support the work of this congregation in many ways, through the work of our hands, the dedication of our time, and the contributions from our pockets. While we are meeting online, half of your contribution will go to support the congregation, and half will support our Helping Hand and Ministers Discretionary Funds, which help local organizations and individuals in need. To support financially, please use our PayPal account. The link will be in the chat and also on your screen. And you will notice when you visit our PayPal account that now you can designate whether your contribution is for your pledge or Helping Hand or general. Your contribution will be greatly, generously, gratefully accepted. If we were meeting in person, you would have a printed order of service that would tell you that the song you heard as you were entering and again reprised a few minutes ago is called Heroes by David Bowie. And the song you just listened to is called Song for My Father by Horace Silver. This is a time in our community of shared faith when we share the deep joys, sorrows, and concerns of our hearts. If you have a joy or a concern to share, please unmute yourself and share your name. If you are joining from the phone, you can unmute yourself by pressing *6. You can also share your joy and concern, joy or concern, in the chat.
Hi, I'm John. I'm down here in Bethesda, Maryland at my daughter's house. And she, on Tuesday, gave birth to her second grandson. he's doing well, and she's doing well as well. She came home from the hospital on Friday, and he's a cute little guy, and his name is Kai, Kai. And so now we have 3-year-old Bryce, who turned 3 this week, and our daughter had her birthday this week, and Kai's birthday is this week, and his son-in-law gets into the celebration, so it's quite a week.
That's great. Congratulations. Hi, good morning. This is Michael, and I was fortunate to attend a celebration of World Peace and Prayer Day sunrise service this morning at the Shinnecock Nation, and World Peace and Prayer Day is a Native American celebration on the first day of summer, and some people celebrated it yesterday, and many are celebrating it today. Arvel Looking Horse says that we warned that one day you would not be able to control what you have created, and that day is here. The message to the world is that we need to heal together, survive together, and come together. In a time of chaos, there will be a sign, and it was just a beautiful service this morning. And the thing that stuck with me from some of the speakers was the dust of our deeds lingers long. And I can't stop thinking about that statement, that the dust of our deeds lingers long. And I wanted to share it with you.
Hi, this is Tracy, and that's beautiful. I wish I had known. I would have been there too. I've been focusing on the sky because they say what so above, so below. And there's this amazing eclipse yesterday that coincided with the solstice. And I watched this video where they had all these geometric shapes over what was happening in the skies, and right over Stonehenge, the eclipse was going to go perfectly over the healing stone in Stonehenge, and it hasn't happened for like 12,592 years. And then also a couple hours later over the Pyramid of Giza. So there was a lot of stuff happening a long time ago that we've completely forgotten about. But someone said last week that today could possibly be the most important day of our lives. And with all this dust, all this sorrow and hurt and everything, you all have our own words for it. I just was like praying and hoping that whatever is happening above that is coming into alignment could somehow bless and heal what we're so desperately trying to recognize and heal. And that no wound is healed until it can be heard. So I'm hoping we're doing a better job of listening, and I'm hoping that whatever is beyond this small blue and green orb is sending down some blessings to us.
Thank you. I invite you to take a deep breath. I hear you saying that you can't hear me. I am unmuted, so I'm going to continue talking because I'm getting a thumbs up. We offer our prayers for new life and new birth. May it be fruitful, more joy than pain. We offer our prayers of sorrow and regret for all the ways that we have fallen short, and our continued prayers that we work to do better, remembering that we are never alone. We are part of a community that believes in justice and liberation and love and action. Ashe. As we deepen into this moment of prayer and reflection, of meditation, I invite you take a sip of water. Some of you are doing it without even being prompted. And another deep breath. If this is available to you, to feel your feet flat on the floor beneath you. Wherever you are sitting or standing, to notice the surface beneath you as you continue to breathe. These words, this meditation is from the Reverend Teresa Soto. It's called Taraxacum. Even though they are edible, someone decided that dandelions are weeds, stragglers to destroy, to uproot. But dandelions never got the message, never thought to care, busy instead with dropping roots, flinging seeds, unfurling shoots, and persistent in digging in that taproot to depths of 2 or 3 average adults end to end. The tiny yellow flower survives. You are no less resilient, reaching both down to the strength that holds you and up to the light, out with your beauty. And you know, having sunk your effort into the cool, damp earth, that while dandelions can be clipped and fought, uninvested in anyone's opinion, they throw their sparkling futures onto the wind, tomorrow tucked into seeds, and grow all the way back, strong and bowing at the very same time. Let us hold these few moments in silence. Will you join in singing this next hymn, When Our Heart is in a Holy Place?
trust in each of us, every color, every creed and kind, and we see our faces in each other's eyes, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we tell a story from deep inside, and we listen with a loving mind, and we hear our voices in each other's words, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we share the silence of sacred space, and the God of our hearts stirs within, and we feel the power above each other's faith, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place.
A thing that you probably by now know about me is that I love a good story. I love to hear a good story. I love to read a good story. I love to tell a good story. Folk tales or fairy tales. When I lead service, that's frequently our time for all ages, our first message. I especially love and have been in my pandemic binge watching, I've been watching and enjoying superhero stories. There are the DC comics on one hand, our Superman, our Wonder Woman, our Batman. If you watch the WB, you can really get into the Flash or Supergirl or Black Lightning, which is amazing. They're also on the other end, Marvel comics. You've got your Iron Man and your Captain America, Black Panther, also amazing. But if you really get into these stories, they are not just fun and games and entertaining. These are complicated stories. These are heroes with troubled pasts who frequently are working outside of the law, who sometimes are working against each other. There was a whole Captain America movie about half of them on one side, half of them on another. Heroes turn to villains. The field of literary analysis is filled with scholars who will explain to us how we are each the heroes of our own stories. We see ourselves as the center of a great adventure, charting a course or the core of a romance or tragedy. When we see ourselves at the center of our story, we are not a side character or a bit player to be acted upon by others. Sometimes we allow ourselves to be. But mostly Mostly, we let ourselves be centered. We all have a story, at least one, to tell. And generally, in our own stories, we are good and righteous. We are heroes. But taken from the perspective of others around us, our same stories, told from a different point of view, may show us to be not heroes, but villains. Take the story of the three pigs. We know this story. Many of us grew up with this story. And in the story that you grew up with, who is the villain? The big bad wolf. But from a different perspective, from the perspective of the wolf, the villain, does your understanding, does your opinion of hero and villain change? A few months ago, I was at a retreat, a collection of ministers and religious educators, and we were given an exercise. We were asked to read the story of Goldilocks and the Three Bears. And in our small groups, to think about where we find ourselves in this story. Goldilocks and the Three Bears, you probably remember, yeah? Golden-haired girl goes into a home of three bears and first tries the porridge. One's too hot, one's too cold, one's just right. Then the chair, one's too small, one's too big, one's just right. And then a bed. And then the bear owners, occupants of the home, find her in their bed. So we did this exercise in October. And if you can remember way back in our pre-COVID days, a story that was very present in October was the story of Amber Geiger and Botham Jean. A real life Goldilocks story. Golden-haired Amber Geiger, Texas police officer, enters the home of Botham Jean thinking that it is her own. And when she finds him there, shoots and kills him. When you place yourself in the story, where you place yourself in the story is shaped by history and identity. Those matter when we are parsing out heroes and villains. You might be familiar with the Doctrine of Discovery. Another great story. In case you're not, the Doctrine of Discovery is a 15th century statement of international law, let's call it international law, that really sanctioned conquest and colonization. It put forth the idea that European nations eager to claim the New World had a legitimate right to colonize lands occupied by non-Christians. And so, let loose on the world, the Doctrine of Discovery was used as a justification for hundreds of years of colonization and imperialism. Less politely, hundreds of years of stealing land and destroying people and their ways of life. But if you are the European traveler, adventurer, to discover new lands, you are the hero of a grand adventure. And until recently, if you are the descendant of one of these explorers, and even if you aren't, you've been asked to imagine yourself as that great discoverer, that great adventurer, a hero, at the center of this grand story. This way of thinking is officially encoded in US law in an 1823 Supreme Court decision that allowed white Americans to claim land occupied by indigenous people. It is the idea behind manifest destiny. Manifest destiny, this concept that it is our destiny to go forth and claim new lands. It is our American grand adventure. And when you as a nation are ordained and directed by God to move forward as the hero of this grand adventure, there has to be a villain whose rights you ignore, whose sovereignty you disregard, whose humanity you may not see. This great American story is so different when we talk to our indigenous siblings who were displaced, whose land was stolen and poisoned, whose people were decimated, whose sacred burial grounds still today are decimated. We are the villain. We are the villain in their story. This year, if you participate in General Assembly, it was originally scheduled to be in Providence, Rhode Island, the home of the Wampanoags and the Pequots and the Nipmucs and the Niantics and the Narragansetts. If you participate in General Assembly, you will hear a lot about 1620 and the 400 years of colonization on this land. 400 years ago, settlers arrived in Plymouth, Massachusetts, adventurers, empowered as heroes of their own stories. Here on Long Island, the beginning of that colonization is marked a little later, in 1640. It was then, in what is now called Southold, that settlers founded a town on land taken from the Shinnecock people. Today, here on the East End, the Shinnecock are our neighbors. And we are working hard, some of us harder than others, to rebuild a relationship that is about restoration and reconciliation, so that they may one day be not just our neighbors, but our siblings. And that work of restoration is never easy and not simple. Our faith, Unitarian Universalism, though we imagine that we are the heroes of many stories, and we tell the story that way, Even as we have been heroes, we have also been villains. In the story of abolition, we talk about Theodore Parker, who carried a gun, kept a gun in his pulpit. We talk about the Unitarians and the Universalists who were part of the Underground Railroad. There were as many Unitarians and Universalists who were not abolitionists, who believed that the law was the law and needed to be abided, that the natural way of things was that some ruled and some didn't. In the story of civil rights, we talk about Viola Liza. We talk about the heroes in this faith who marched on Washington, who marched for justice and civil rights, and in the South and other ways, there are almost as many who did not march, who thought that it was not their fight, though they could not say it, that the way things were was just and ordained. If we look closely, we are at least halfway a villain in that story, or the Black empowerment crisis that some folks name in this own faith. In the 1960s, when Black Unitarian Universalists wanted to assert Black power, Black space, Black representation in the leadership of this faith, most, not half, not some, most Unitarian Universalists decided that no, that claiming a Black space and a Black voice and Black leadership in our Universalist faith is not who we are. And lots of people, lots of Black people and families left this faith unwilling to participate in a faith where, having seen themselves to be sitting next to heroes, could hear the words of villains in the pews across from them. Psychologists will tell us about an egocentric bias, that it is natural or at least predictable and expected, that we don't think about the effects we have on others, that we see ourselves centered. But our faith challenges us to go beyond egocentric bias. It challenges us, as we sang, to see our faces in each other's eyes, to hear our voices in each other's words. Our faith challenges us to feel the power of each other's faith. And we are called to do better. We are called to expand the circle of we, to broaden our perspective. We are called to imagine that when we are the heroes of our own stories, we may very well be the villain of someone else's. We are called to imagine that and to take it seriously. And when we move beyond our narrow perspective, our egocentric bias, how then do our actions change? And here's where I'm going to throw you another challenge. Because just as we can easily identify ourselves as the heroes of our own stories, we can pretty easily point to the villains in our own stories. If you sit me down with a cup of coffee or tea, I can tell you all about who has done me wrong, both personally and politically. My story is full of villains, and I bet yours is too. And just as I am called to imagine that I am the villain in someone else's story, I am called to imagine that the villains in my story, all those people who have done me wrong, are the heroes of their own. Not a day goes by, even today, when we don't hear stories of lament or anger or rage about the idiots on the other side. And they're not always idiots. Sometimes they are incomprehensible. Sometimes they are heartless and they are cruel. They behave in ways, they vote in ways that denigrate my full humanity, that constrain my life and the lives of my people. They are the villains in any understanding of the word. And they are also the heroes of their own stories. And they are also my people. And what does my faith have to say about that? What does your faith have to say about that? When we tell our stories from deep inside and we listen with a loving mind, trust the wisdom in each of us, every color, every creed and kind. We each have a story to tell, and we are called to listen to the stories of others. My country's skies are bluer than the ocean, and sunlight beams on cloverleaf and pine. But other lands have sunlight too and clover, and skies are everywhere as blue as mine. And other hearts in other lands are beating with hopes and dreams as true and high as mine. And here's a final word. Sometimes, friends, sometimes we are called to be the villain, to be on the other side, to be on the side of what is right and just. To be on the side of what is right and just, we must be the villain. Martin Luther King Jr. was at a point in his life the most hated man in America. He was on the FBI most wanted list. He was disparaged and maligned by whites, of course, to be expected, resistors of change, but also disparaged and maligned by Black preachers, by leaders and allies who had once been partners. The very Black people who he was working to help get free. The villain. And today, he is a hero. Today, he is a hero. Even though they are edible, someone decided that dandelions are weeds, stragglers to destroy, to uproot. But dandelions never got the memo. Never got the memo that they are the villain in someone else's garden. They just go about doing their own thing. Dropping roots, flinging seeds, unfurling shoots, and persistent in digging in. The tiny, tiny yellow flower survives. I talk to you about faith as if it is the simplest thing in the world. I know that faith is hard. I know that living, acting faithfully is hard. Or at least it seems that way, because we are called to use it in difficult situations. I don't need to call on my faith when everyone around is pushing in the same direction. I need faith when I am surrounded by villains. I need faith when I confront my own villainy. I need faith when I step out to cause some trouble. It is difficult, and it is simple. It is as simple as a dandelion. You are no less resilient, reaching both down to the strength that holds you and up to the light and out with your beauty. And you know, having sunk your effort into the cool, damp earth, that while dandelions can be clipped and fought, uninvested in anyone's opinion, they throw their sparkling futures onto the wind, tomorrow tucked in seeds that grow all the way back, both strong and bowing at the very same time. You, my friends, be dandelions. Be heroes and listeners, and when needed, be villains. When it's hard and when it's not. Be dandelions. Let's take a breath and sing together the melody you will recognize. The words are on your screen.
We would be one as now we join in singing our hymn of love to pledge ourselves anew to that high cause of greater understanding of who we are and what in us is true. We would be one in living for each other to show to all a new community. We would be one in building for tomorrow a nobler world than we have known today. We would be one in searching for that meaning which binds our hearts and points us on our way. As one we pledge ourselves to greater service with love and justice strive to make us free.
Our benediction, holding the hand of someone near you, or imagining that you are holding the hand of someone dear to you. From the Reverend Harry Serve. From arrogance, pompousness, and from thinking ourselves more important than we are, may some saving sense of humor liberate us. For allowing ourselves to ridicule the faith of others, may we be forgiven. For making war and calling it peace, special privilege and calling it justice, indifference and calling it tolerance, pollution and calling it progress, may we be cured. For telling ourselves and others that evil is inevitable, while good is impossible, may we stand corrected. God of our mixed up, tragic, aspiring, doubting, and insurgent lives, help us to be as good as in our hearts we have always wanted to be. Ashe, amen. We extinguish our chalice with the familiar words. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. This final song is called Fathers and Sons by Cat Stevens.
Happy Father's Day. Here's one of my favorite songs, Father and Son. Well, it's Yusuf Islam now, was Cat Stevens. And I love this song because the father sings with the deep voice and the son sings with the high voice, in case you haven't heard this song before. Yeah. So. It's not time to make a change. Just sit down, take it easy, you're still young. That's your fault, there's so much you have to go through. Find a girl and settle down. If you want, you can marry. Look at me, I am old, but I am happy. I was once like you are now, and I know that it's not easy to be calm when you found something going on. But take your time and think a lot. Why, think of everything you've got, for you will still be here tomorrow. What your dreams may not. How can I try to explain? 'Cause when I do, he turns away again. It's always been the same old story. From the moment I could talk, well, I was ordered to listen. Now there's a way, and I know that I have to go away. I know I have to go. It's not time to make a change. Just sit down and take it slowly. You're still young. That's your fault. There's so much you have to go through. Well, find a girl and settle down. If you want, you can marry. Look at me. I am old, but I'm happy. All the times that I've cried, keeping all the things I knew inside. It's hard, but it's harder to ignore it. If they were right, then I'd agree. But it's them they know, not me. Now there's a way, and I know that I have to go away. I know I have to go. Thank you.